Good morning from California and welcome to Race Industry Now, the weekly webinar series from ePowerTrade, presented to you today by ARP, Performance Plus Global Logistics, Scott Lewis and Associates, Peak, ShopMonkey, and Fifth Third Bank Motorsport. I am Francisque Savignan, the founder and CEO of ePowerTrade, the global platform for the performance and racing industry. This is episode 337. We're going to travel to Australia when it's very, very early in the morning to talk with Simon from XS Injectors. With me this morning are Judy Kin, the co-founder of ePowerTrade, and a wonderful host, Mr. Brad Gillie. Judy?
Thanks, Francisque. And as you mentioned, we have a special sponsor on today, Randy Sosnoff and his team at Scott Lewis Associates, Inc. And I could personally say this because I've known them for 25 years. They are one of the top in the US-based manufacturer reps in the country. So we are proud to have them on today. So I'm sure they're watching here. So on to you, Brad.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Judy. Thank you, Francisque. I really appreciate that. And really excited about what we've got coming up today. Today's topic is why good injector data matters for maximum engine performance by XS Injectors. And as Francisque and Judy mentioned, we are going to go to Australia. I think it's 2 a.m. there. Simon is the founder. Simon Richards, the founder of XS Injectors. How you doing, Simon?
Good, Brad. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic, which, by the way, I believe happy birthday is in order to both you and your son.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, it was my birthday yesterday, and it's my son's 18th birthday today. So it's a pretty good time over here.
Yeah, that is fantastic. Well, we had the opportunity to chat a little bit last week, and really this is very exciting, the product that you're offering and what you guys are doing, and I look forward to spending some time talking about that. I do want to let you know, if you are viewing the webinar right now, you are more than welcome to ask a question at any time. Just type it into the chat, and we'll get as many questions answered as we can, and I think you're going to find this very informative and actually very exciting because, Simon, you guys are, taking things to a new level when it comes to what you're doing with injectors, and I know we're going to talk about that, but just give us your brief history and your background with XS Injectors.
Okay, I suppose, well, I won't be known to the American market, but in Australia, well, my dad was a mechanic, and in the late 80s, he started cleaning fuel injectors and reconditioning fuel injectors for other mechanics in the area. In 2000, he decided to leave the mechanical business behind and just specialize in fuel injectors. And that's when I came on board. So I've been doing just fuel injectors since 2000 in Australia, basically. In the first year, we picked up probably 350 distributors, which was good, which got us going and got us started. And then from there, we branched out. Probably mid-2000s, we started dealing with performance workshops, for cars for workshops doing performance upgrades and that sort of thing. And then from there, after listening to what the mechanics were looking for, they need well-tuned fuel injectors with really good data to make the car, to make it a great job. So we went about developing a test bench that could help us do that. And from that, XS Injectors is really is where it's at. So yeah, that's my background. So I've been doing fuel injectors for 23 years, basically.
Yeah, and I know I definitely want to talk more about your test bench and the match sets and all of that. I believe, do we have a video that we want to show here, Simon?
Yeah, we do. What I might do, just to give you an idea of, just a broad idea of what it's about, I can give you a bit of a slideshow first. It's not everyone hates slideshows. It's only 2 slides, but I'll just show you quickly what it's about.
All right.
Where are we?
Yeah, I always like show and tell in these because I think it gives us not only a lot more information, but maybe even some more questions and a lot more depth and detail. So I'll let you take it over.
Yep, cool. No worries. Thank you. Okay, so just let me maximize this. Okay, so to do, like, there's other guys out there doing fuel injectors, we understand that. So to get it to give mechanics something that they really wanted, that we decided to sort of take it to the next level and try and develop something that wasn't out there and something that's above and beyond what you can buy right now. So there is a J1832 engineering standard. So that was the first step. So we decided to do all the testing based on that. And every injector that gets tested under very tightly controlled testing parameters. So it starts off at 3 bar pressure, give or take 0.5%. 21 degrees Celsius is the fluid temperature, give or take 2 degrees, and 14 volts, give or take 0.05 of a volt. So every injector gets 6,500 plus flow points measured on the injector, because you can have an injector open at say 10% all the way through to 100%. So we do 6,500 plus flow points along the whole spectrum of the injector. We do 3 tests on each injector, but I'll get into that a bit further. One of them is a high flow test, which is the test in the linear range. So in the linear range, we do 1,200 flow points. And we also measure the dead time of each injector. So the dead time is, if you can imagine an injector just pulsing with a plunger up and down really, really quickly. And every time the plunger opens, fuel comes out. Every time the plunger closes, it stops the fuel flow. So this happens in milliseconds. So we measure the dead time of each injector as well, and which is how long it takes for the plunger to lift fully. And then once we have all that information, we match the sets to within 1% on their flow, and that is on the high slope. So the linear range, so 1% of flow, and each set has the injectors matched within 2% on their dead times. Now that sort of flow matching, it's called dynamic flow matching. So there's a couple of different types of flow matching. You have dynamic flow matching, and you also have static flow testing. So static flow testing is just which is what most people do, is they'll put it on just a basic fuel injector test bench, and they'll just test the flow normally at a very, very high range, and they will just see how the fluid sits in the test tube, just take a recording there, and they'll match them based on that. So the problem that you have there is, if you just measure flow of an injector set at the high range, they all operate very differently at the low range. And the low range is where you're idling, and that's where you're doing low cruise, and that's where you really feel the difference in the cylinders of flow. So the idea is we do dynamic flow matching, which means that each injector in each cylinder behaves the same from idle to full open throttle, basically. And so what the exactly matched tuning data is all about. So this is probably the really big difference. So we do really, really tightly matched sets, and we're really happy with how that works. But the real difference with what we do is we have the exact match tuning data. So we have tune files available for each set in 11 different softwares and ECUs. And the tune files that you download are based on how that set performed on the test bench. So you don't just upload a generic and use a generic data file. It's based on how they performed on the test bench. And what that means is that once you put the injectors in and then you put the tune file in, you don't need to trim any data in the ECU to match the injectors, because the trimming is actually in the data. And that's one of the things that really sets us apart. So now what I can show you what the machine looks like if you like. I've got a quick little video, and then we can maybe run through a test.
That sounds great.
Does that work for you?
Yeah, that's awesome.
Okay, cool. All right, hang on 2 secs. So just got to work this out. Okay, this is a little promo video that we did. So I'll just give you an idea of what it looks like, and then I'll show you what the machine looks like, and I'll show you what a test looks like. So it's something we had made from scratch. This is testing one injector. Obviously, it's something that we had made from scratch. It had to have an engineer do it, and it took him. It's actually really, really hard to do it correctly, and it took him 2 years to build it. So
wow.
Yeah, and everything is completely custom made. So we do injectors one at a time. Well, each injector has a serial number, so we type the serial number in.
Now on our side, Simon, I don't think we're seeing the video actually playing right now. We're seeing a shot of.
Well, that probably doesn't work for you then, does it? So hang on 2 secs.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. Let me get back on track.
No problem.
Are you seeing that?
Let's see. Now we're starting to see it move. Yeah, about 38 seconds in.
Okay, cool. All right, let's go back.
Or it might even be still at this point.
Are you seeing that, Brad?
I see what we see right now is it looks like there's a screen there which is showing performance, and then yeah, now you took it off. So the video wasn't actually playing. It almost looked like it just got frozen right at the beginning screen, and then we could see sort of still images scrolling forward.
Okay, all right. Sorry about that.
No problem. Yeah, there we go. Now it's moving.
Okay, cool. Okay, no worries. Probably half the fact that it's 2 a.m. over here, I suppose. So you might have to bear with me a little bit.
Sure.
So yeah, so yes, that's the machine there. So you put a serial number in. So everything has been completely custom made. And because we do one injector at a time, it's much easier to control the testing parameters, basically. So. And so what we'll do is, you'll see there, we'll do a batch of injectors. We'll do a batch of, say, 100 injectors at a time, and then all that information gets taken. And so once we do an injector, the injector test stops, and that packet of information goes up onto the cloud, and all the information for that injector gets stored on the cloud. So I will show you what an injector test looks like as well, because that's probably a bit more interesting, and we can get into more detail there. Just bear with me a sec. Just trying to. This is still going.
Yeah.
Okay, have you got that, Brad?
Yes, we do. Yeah, we can now see like the screen of the chart. I guess that maybe the test performance.
Yep. Okay. Excellent. Thanks. Okay. So just to briefly show you what we've got here. So these are the testing parameters over here. So we have, this one is the pressure. So we like to get a 3-bar pressure, give or take 0.5%. They're the ranges that we work with. This one is temperature. So it's 21 degrees Celsius, give or take 2 degrees, and they're the ranges that we work with there. And this one is 14 volts, give or take 0.05 volts. So what we have over this side is, you'll see a yellow line will come up, and this is the pulse width. So the yellow line, that's 10% open, that's 30% open, 30% duty cycle, 50% open, and 90% open. So you get the idea of what's happening there. And this one here is, every blue dot is 100 flow samples averaged out. So we get an idea of where it flows. So at the moment, it was just making sure that all these are within range, and then it starts a test. So, okay, so the first test has started now. So what it's doing is, it's doing test 1, which is what we call the high flow sweep. And that is so that's a range between 20% duty cycle and 90% duty cycle. And what happens in this range, that's called, the nickname for that is the linear range. So when you test injectors, when you open an injector at 20% and then take samples all the way across, the flow rate acts in a fairly straight line, and they call that the linear range. And this is also the high slope. So it starts at 20% duty cycle, goes to 90% duty cycle. It stops at 12 points along the way and does 100 flow samples at each of those 12 stops. So that way we get 1,200 flow tests to work out what the high slope is. And where you see a yellow slice over here, that's where it's taken the 100 samples. And so this is obviously the pressure. And as it steps up in pressure, the pressure drops, and it has to correct itself to get it back in range. This is the temperature during the test, and this is also the voltage during that test. And what it's doing is, it's working out on the fly. See those blue dots? It's working out what the high slope is on the fly based on what's happening on the test bench. So at the moment, it's stepping up to, it's at 85% duty cycle, does another 100. Now it moves to 90% duty cycle, and then it does another 100. So at this point here, test 1, the high flow sweep, it's worked out what the high slope is. The next test it does is a static flow test, where it just opens the injector like a garden hose and just takes a measurement with no pulsing restrictions on it. So that's the static flow test. That test is done. And now this is where it takes a lot of samples. So we know this is the high slope. This is the idealized high slope here. So we know that the injector, if you think of an injector, by the time you give it electricity, it takes a little bit of time to energize the coil. It takes a little bit of time for the plunger to lift, and for the plunger to lift fully, and that's the dead time of the injector. So we need to know what to get really good accurate data, we need to know what the dead time of each injector is. So based on this high slope here, it knows that it opens at around, I don't know, 11% duty cycle, somewhere around there. So what it does is, it goes back a little bit, takes 100 flow samples and moves up 0.2% of a duty cycle, takes another 100 flow samples, up another 0.2, until it works out, until it gets a really strong flow profile here as well. So this is the third test, and it's called the nonlinear range, because typically what happens down here is the injector, the flow data doesn't act in a typical straight line. It's quite bumpy. So this is the nonlinear range. So this is where we work out. So the injector is open and gets a full flow around about this point here. And what it's doing is, so every one of these blue dots is 100 samples averaged out and then moves up 0.2% of a duty cycle. And it's working out on the fly. That's the low slope there, and that's the high slope. And what it does, it works out on the fly at what point, see how the nonlinear range is a little bit bumpy, and it goes up in a higher trajectory. So it works out at what point the low slope turns into the high slope. And then it calls the test done. So that's one test done, and that's 2 minutes. So after that happens, all the data from that test, once it happens, all the data from that test, it has a serial number attached to it. That little packet of data gets flicked up to the cloud, and then we'll have a pool of, say, 100 injectors of one type just sitting there, ready to be tested, ready to be matched, basically. And then we have an algorithm sitting in the background. So I might ask I'll ask the algorithm to give me, say, 3 sets of 8, 4 sets of 6, and two sets of 4. And from the information it has there, it'll just go ahead and tell me what sets are, and it'll clump it into sets for me. So that's where, from there, we do the flow matching within 1% and the dead times within 2%. So that way you have a really tightly matched set of injectors. Yeah. So
if I buy a set of injectors from you, I literally have a set. Every single one of those has been on that test bench, and it's spit out all of the data, which is available in the cloud. And I get a set that has been matched based on that test right there. Correct.
And what we do is we show you what that data is as well. So I know there's a lot of companies that say we do this and we do that, but it's actually really, really hard to do correctly and accurately. So what we do is we give you a link with each set that we give you a link so you can actually access that data as well. And you can go into each injector and you can see what the testing parameters are like. So what would happen, so just say a mechanic bought that set of injectors, they need to put those injectors in an engine, and they need to do the tune. So that they need to get a tune file. So the ECU needs to be retuned to let it know that the injectors are pulsing, they are flowing more than what you're expecting. So you need a tune file for each ECU to make the tune go well. So if you want me to, I'll show you how they can access that information and what it all looks like.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, cool. Okay. Let me get this thing going again. Okay, so all you do when you're accessing the information is you go to the website. There's a thing called data download. There's a little button called data download. All you need to do is give us, I'm just assuming you can see that, Brad?
We can, yes, thank you.
Yeah, okay, good. Okay, thanks. So there is a data download section. You put in 2 of the serial numbers of the injectors of the set that you've got, and that points you to the right set, basically. So you can't just sort of fluke and put in 1 serial number. You need 2 serial numbers. It'll point you to the correct set. Mm-hmm. So this is a set of 1500s, a set of 6 1500s. So these are the serial numbers here, and these are the flow rates, and these are the dead times. So this set has an average of 1541.65, and it's matched within 0.67% of each other on the flow, and dead times are matched within 1.04% of each other. So that way, you can see what your set looks like. And with each set as well, we give you a data card that has a QR code. So once you finish the job, you can put that piece of paper in the glove box, and then your customer can access this information on their smartphone. So they can go in and have a look, and it's just a bit of a fun thing to do, I suppose. So the mechanic would go down to, so a mechanic would access this information on their laptop because they need to download a spreadsheet. So this gives you an idea. These are the tune files that we have set up for all the different for all the different ECUs and software. So just say, for example, you're an LS tuner. They use HP Tuner all the time. So what you do is, if you need the data to tune this set, you would click on HP tuner data. And what it's doing is actually creating the file on the spot, because it's not a generic tune file. It's actually data based on how that set performed on the test bench. So every time you order a set of 1500s and you're putting them in LS, you download a different data set. So you don't just keep using the same data set every time. So you click on that, it goes into the cloud, it sorts through all the information it has, and it creates a file for you on the spot. So I just it's got to work out how to full screen this, Brad. Hang on.
Yeah, we can see all of that. Yeah.
Just I'm going to have to get to. I must have clicked the wrong button here. Sorry.
No problem. No, this is fascinating, especially considering like all of the information that's already given to you. And if I'm a tuner, having all of that information accessible. And I think one of the key things that you said there too, Simon, you don't get an LS tune file. You get an LS tune file for those injectors that you actually have in your hand that you put in the car.
That's correct. Yep. That's how it works. It's which is something that hasn't been done before. So, and the idea between that is if you, I'm jumping all over the place here. Sorry.
No problem.
My 2 o'clock in the morning Zoom skills are deserting me. I'm sorry about that.
That's okay. Trust me, you're doing a whole lot better than I would be doing on the technology side. And actually, I think in just being able to show this is incredible, and getting the message across. We can see your screen the whole way. I don't know if maximizing it would do much more other than just you scrolling up and down, if that helps. But
yeah, okay. No, I actually wanted to show you what an example of a data file would look like.
Okay.
So maybe just bear with me a sec. I'll just open one up on the side here, and then I'll.
Sure.
Sorry.
No problem. Yeah, this is again just a fascinating way to do it, because not only are you offering a quality product with the injectors, but you're also offering the information that for someone who is going to be tuning a car is to be invaluable, and especially going just through those few extra steps, and not just that, but also saving time for the tuner in being able to have that information readily available to them in a way that you can download.
Yeah,
and we can see that. Okay,
cool. All right, I'll try again. I'll give it one last shot. Oh, here we go. So yeah, what actually happens? It's been covered up by the Zoom panel.
Oh, okay.
That's what's going on. Yeah. Okay. So you got that one?
Yes, we do. Yeah.
Okay. So this is so if you downloaded the HP tuner data file, so there's a link back to your set basically.
And that's back to your set, not just the genetic. That is specific to what you have.
Correct, and that will take you back to that page that we had before. So. These are the different ECUs that you would be using, and these tables change every time you download a set for a different ECU. So this is all the information that you need to plug in to get a good tune. So it's got to move that. So these are the offset values. Then you click over, go to a different tab. Short pulse adder values. Anyone who does LS tuning and HP tuner data, they would recognize all these numbers and how it all looks. So these are your minimum pulse widths, and these are your flow rates on the different ECUs. So all these numbers change every time. So wherever you see a yellow section there, you can actually alter the information. So HP tuner, they have a very limited number range that you can put in. So if you change that to 50% scaling, the numbers change, so you can actually enter the data correctly into the ECU without having to get a calculator and work out what all the changes are basically. So
oh wow,
yeah, so that's pretty cool too. So if you then wanted to just say your friend had this set in their car in an LS, for example, and they wanted to sell that set 3 years down the track and give it to a friend who's got a like a Mitsubishi, like a 4G63 or something like that, they can still go on the website and then just plug in two of those serial numbers, but they might be using a Haltech ECU. So you click on that, you still have a data file. Wait for this to load up. It's presented in the way that Haltech like their data, which is very, very different to HP tuner. So you still have a tune file, no matter who you give the injectors to. As long as you keep the injectors in a set, you'll still have a tune file specific for that set, no matter who you give them to. So these are the different Haltech ECUs. So if you go to the Nexus, which is the one that everyone's using at the moment, it's presented the way the data's presented the way that the Nexus Haltech like their data presented. So that's pretty cool. Then we go to give you an idea, there's a few tables. There's a generic dead time matrix there. for the set and tells you at 2 bar pressure, 3 bar pressure, 4 bar pressure, what the flow rates are. This is a pretty cool little one as well. So to give you an idea of how tightly we match the injectors, so these little crosses here are based on actual results over time. So we match the sets within 2% of dead times. So there's your dead time scale there.
Huh.
And we measure the flow rates within 1%. So every set we have is in this little section here, in this bottom left-hand section. So, and this particular set is probably sitting in the middle of that. But if you were to just get a random set that hadn't been tested correctly, you can see there's the heavy clump over here. So between 4 and 6 and 7% difference in flow. That's if you have a set that's not tested correctly, that's the variation you can have across each cylinder in flow and dead times. Look, these ones here, the dead times, there's not a huge difference in this particular type on the dead times. The dead time only goes up to about 3.5%. But you can see, you know, you can head out to 9% variation in cylinders in flow if you don't have correctly matched injectors. So
wow.
It goes to show, yeah, which can show you how critical it is. So with the transparency side of things as well, what we do is you can actually click on each injector and we'll show you what the testing parameters were for that particular injector. This is where the transparency side of it comes in. Mm-hmm. So this is the flow profile of that injector. So these are, every yellow dot there is 100 flow samples averaged out. So you can see at 40% duty cycle, this one flowed at 485.25 cc's. At 85% duty cycle, it's 1176 cc's. You can go right in, have a look at the nonlinear range, what the testing results were for the nonlinear range. Now, for the 3, if you think back a little bit, we do 3 tests for each injector. So on test 1, on this particular injector in your set, if you click on that, so this is where we took the flow samples.
Yeah.
So there's your pressure. So that's 3 bar, that's 3.01 bar, that's 2.99 bar. So you can see just how tightly we control the pressure. That's where your first 100 samples were taken. That's where your second 100, third 100, and you can see as it steps through the pressure, and then where it corrects itself and where it takes the samples. So sorry, that's just zoomed in. Then you go down to the fuel temperature for this test 1 on this one injector. So 21 degrees, give or take 2 degrees is where we want to sit. So that was the temperature of the fluid, and that was the voltage. And then on this one injector on the set, if you want to go at test 3, we do the nonlinear range, where we do 4,500 odd flow samples. Whoop. I'll just reset that. Hang on.
Oh, that's convenient.
This is a bit jumpy for some reason. No, that's fuel pressure. Sorry, let's go back. Okay, so that's the voltage. Yeah, okay. Yeah, so that's the fuel pressure. So that's the temperature. So everywhere where there's a blue dot, where there's a lot of them, because there's 4,500 flow samples, you can see what the temperature was for that one test on that one injector, and then that was the range for the pressure. And then you can go, if you think you might be having an issue with this one here, 1702, click on that, and the same thing happens basically. So you can see what the testing parameters are for each one.
Yeah, and while you're talking about the individual like that, Simon, let's say I have a set of injectors and you know, I'm looking at, say, the 1702, and
yep.
Look, you guys are making a truly a quality product, but you know, sometimes there are things that do go wrong, and I might need to have a warranty claim. What would happen if I just have a bad injector and I needed to file a warranty claim and get that replaced?
Yeah, okay, so that's a good question actually. As long as they're not, as long as it's not fuel contamination or something, or the injector's broken, if there's a fault with the injector, like a genuine fault, like a coil's blown out or something like that, it's one of those things, we don't have a lot of problems with the injectors as such. So if you tell us what the serial number is, we know, we can pull up the set, we know that this is what the flow rate is of the set, this is what the dead time is of the set. We'll just replace that injector for you, and we'll replace it within the parameters of the set that you've already got. So you don't have to worry about ripping the set out, doing another tune on the car. We'll just give you an injector that just swaps out for that injector basically, and it's a lifetime warranty as well. So if you have any issues whatsoever, for the lifetime of that injector, we'll cover it. So again, as long as it's not fuel contamination or an external factor, if it's an injector problem, then we're happy to swap it out. So, yeah.
And all of this information, as a person who has this set of injectors, is available to me online that I can access anytime and look through all of that. That's not like you're showing us your hidden data. That's the data that I can go look at any time, right?
Absolutely, and your customer can look at that as well. So if you're an engine tuner and do it for retail people, so if people come and bring their car in your workshop and they want you to do their car up and that's your job, you can stick that little piece of paper with the QR code in the glove box, and your customer then has access to that information. They can show their friends or whatever they want to do. So, yeah,
that's really cool. I keep thinking to myself, especially as you're showing all this and how everything is matched, how much time an engine builder might spend, balancing pistons and rods and doing all of this stuff in the engine. This is, to me, the same thing with your injectors, making sure what you have in that engine is balanced performance-wise, right?
Yeah, exactly right. Because as you saw on that graph, the 1%, 2% graph, if you just imagine if you had a set of injectors that were either not tested correctly or not tested at all, you can have a variation of up to 9% across all the cylinders. So the ECU is trying to give the cylinder information saying that it's expecting this much fuel, but it could be out by 9 or 10% because it's not a standard across the board. So having them perfectly tuned means that you really giving the engine the best chance to be optimized, and to have where you really notice these things is when you're idling and when you're doing just low throttle. That's when you really notice when things aren't tuned correctly, or one cylinder might be out a little bit. But then when you pair that with the tuning data, the tuning data, it's not just the injectors tuned, the tuning data is actually tuned to that set of injectors as well. So the idea is to make it as easy as we possibly can for everybody.
Yeah, for sure. If anyone has a question or a comment in the chat, please feel free to type it in. There is one here. It says, I use Link ECUs for our cars. We have non-stock fuel pressure setups for the flex fuel tuning. How will this data be modified from your injector propagated fuel in Link ECU setup? Let's see. Thanks. What you guys are doing here is great.
Okay, so we do have, look, I'm not familiar with the non-stock fuel pressure setups. Okay, so with Link, you can actually download and you can change fuel pressures. So with the spreadsheet that comes through. So so we do data files for the Link ECU, and there's adjustable parameters on that as well.
Okay. And real quick, before we get to the next question, you're in Australia, and people are watching from all over the world and everything, but I know it's, really big for excess injectors. You want to really be able to introduce what you're doing to the US. So if I'm interested, which I think a lot of people are, what do I need to do?
Okay, so it's a bit of a funny step. So we're in a rebranding phase at the moment. So in Australia, we're known as XS as the letters X and S. So moving into the US market, we just decided to change the brand, and we spelled the word XS. So we have a website. We have a website. We have an e-commerce site coming up very, very soon. But the links are all in the ePar Trade. If you have a look at our company profile on ePar Trade, you can message me via WhatsApp at the moment or via the website. And that is xsinjectorsusa.com. We have at the moment set up. So yeah, if you're interested in becoming, if you want to try a set, we're more than happy to help you out and guide you through the process. Or if you want to become a distributor, or you're interested in stocking this sort of thing, then get in touch with us as well.
Okay. We did have a follow-up to that question about the Link ECU. Says, so if I put in the fuel pressure, these will auto adjust the tables with dead times and flow?
Correct. That's correct. Yep. So once you readjust, all the information changes on the spreadsheet.
Okay. Another question: are your injectors used in any sanctioned motorsports around the world?
So we use the injectors are used in Australia. We use them in the TA2 muscle car series. So every engine that gets done uses a set of XS injectors, basically. So yeah.
Okay.
So because it's still a fairly new product, so we've only had this test bench around for a couple of years. So we're just sort of just getting out there. So yeah.
Yeah, which is really neat, especially seeing the way it works, but also the amount of data that it puts out and the fact that you can match everything. When it's, when I become the end user in this, and forgive me, I'm not as familiar with the tuning and all of those things that go on. How much time does this save me? What does this do for me?
Yeah, so that's one of the things as well. So the idea is if you put a set of injectors in, you put the tune file in. So what would normally happen is, just say you had a set of 1000 cc injectors. If you put a tune file in for 1000 cc, but you're set, say 943 cc, so they could be tightly matched at 943 cc, but you'd put the data in, you'd put the injectors in, you'd have to trim the data down about 5% to get the tune just right. That can sometimes take 2 to 3 hours on the dyno. Sometimes it can take longer. So the idea is, and look, it's not every time that that's the case, but it just means that, you know, you put the injectors in, you put the tune file in, you can move on to the next job. Basically, that's how it works. So, you know, it can easily save 2 to 3 hours on each dyno session if you're having trouble tuning the injectors.
Wow. And is this where you were showing also on the Excel sheet in that yellow section where you were changing parameters and it, you know, matches everything to that?
No, so so that information comes when you click on, say, the data for the
Okay.
ECU. Yeah, and then it just goes up into the cloud. It collects all the information that it needs for that set and then creates the file on the spot. So that's where the real tune is. So that's where the tuning's done. So you don't have to. So if you download a spreadsheet, you don't have to do anything. You don't have to touch anything. You just put the injectors in and put the tune file in, and it's all done.
Wow, that's incredible. Another question: can I contact Scott Lewis Associates here in the USA if I wanted to become a distributor? How does that process work?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you know anyone at Scott Lewis Associates, or if you just get in touch with them via their website or their contact form, they will definitely point you in the right direction. So absolutely.
Mm-hmm. And I know we saw, like you were showing us, on the web interface and everything, like the LS and Subaru and all of that. Do you have data sets for all tuning platforms?
Yeah, we've got pretty much most of them covered. Most of the common ones. There's a few of the older ones that we don't worry about because a lot of people aren't using them anymore. So we haven't put the time into because it takes a fair bit of work to get a data set correct. Because it's not just a matter of throwing numbers in there. We've got to make sure the structure of the data is correct. Because there's also data sets out there for ECUs which isn't very good. So we've got to make sure the data set actually matches and does a really good tune for that ECU. So yeah, we pretty much cover everything, most things these days. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The other thing too, and I think we even talked about this a little bit when we were chatting last week. There is all this info. We're talking about buying a product, buying a set of injectors that comes with all of this that you have to offer, which I don't know that or think that that's really being done to this level anywhere else. How does that impact the price, or does it?
Well, the price it's actually not too bad. Looking at this, saying that, you'd expect me to say that, I suppose. Look, we're not the cheapest on the market, but we're not the most expensive on the market either. We compare with brands that are out there right now. So, and we don't, it's not the top end brands. Like we don't, the very expensive brands, it's not those that we're comparing with. We compare with brands that are priced below that, basically. So it shouldn't be a price problem getting involved. It's just one of those things this is what we found in Australia, that if people try a set, they normally become customers. It's just because it makes their life so much easier. And they know they know they've got consistency and they know they've got a good product every time.
Yeah, yeah, and which I think the point more to the question is that you're competitive with other products out there. And look, if we're in the performance industry and we're racers, I don't necessarily. I think we all understand that whatever it might be, we want the right thing, not necessarily the cheap thing. But like again, all of this is offered without some big upcharge for everything, which I think is great. Interesting question here, Simon. Are the injectors the same height / connector type, or do you offer different variations?
Yeah, look, so what we do is we do offer different variations. So the US catalog is going to be available very, very soon. And what we do is we can pretty much make anything fit anything. So you buy them as a set, and the set comes, if it needs a height extension, we have the height extension included. If it needs a different wiring connector, the different wiring connector is included as well. So the idea is if you buy a set, everything is in the box for you to be up and running. So you don't have to buy anything else. It comes as a kit ready to go straight in the car.
No, that's pretty impressive. How are the injectors provided to the end user? Loose in a box, what's the packaging?
Yep. So we've got some pretty slick packaging, actually. It looks pretty good. So yeah, it all comes in a box. It's all neatly laid out. We take a lot of time. Look, because it's a quality product, the presentation is one of the things that's really important to us. So they come in a nice box with the data card as well.
Yeah, I can't help but think to myself, especially the fact that you guys are doing each one of these individually, spending a couple of minutes on every single injector, doing all the testing. That it's not like you're just going to kind of toss them in. So
yeah, throw them in a plastic Ziploc bag and hope for the bit of bubble wrap around them. There, that's not what we're about. That's it.
Yeah, this is really neat. Well, the other part of it too, Simon, again, as we talked about in the beginning, the amount of experience that you have, and I'm going to call it a lifetime. I mean, this is something that your father started doing as well, and that you've been a part of it for a long time in a true deep understanding. And, talking about 30 years and all of that, I'm sure having seen just about everything that you're going to see when it comes to injectors.
Pretty much, yep. So there's not too many people in Australia who've done more work on injectors than I have. So, this is pretty much the culmination of all the knowledge that I have and all the industry experience that I have. This is pretty much the culmination of all that.
Yeah, well, what you've done is just incredible, and certainly a game changer as well, which is awesome. We appreciate you telling us about it here through eParTrade and everything else that we're doing, and would certainly encourage people to go check out your page at eParTrade, distribution, Scott Lewis and Associates, and obviously everything else you have going on. Simon, this was a true pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Brad. It was great.
Brad, there is one more question before we go. I just see from, do you offer injector data for Bosch direct injectors for VW Audi's application?
Unfortunately, we don't do direct injection. It's a totally different setup. So I would love to get involved with that at some stage, but at the moment, this is for the low pressure stuff. So between 3 bar and sort of 7 bar pressure, whereas direct injection is more around 200 bar. So that's a totally different setup, and it's not something that we're geared up for at this stage.
Wow. Well, happy birthday to you and your son, by the way. And
great. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Appreciate you joining us in the middle of your night.
Yeah, no worries.
Yeah.
It's been good.
Thank you very much, Simon. And, great to have you on. And this webinar has been recorded. We pushed Simon's product Excess Injectors back on the homepage of the eParTrade platform. So please go to eParTrade.com. You can connect with Simon's and as well as Scott Lewis Associates, who is helping Simon here in the States. So thank you very much for being with us today. As I said, the webinar has been recorded. It will be posted later on the eParTrade platform, distributed through our newsletter and social media channel. We will be back live next Wednesday with Fuel Lab, and we're going to be talking fuel delivery. Thank you very much for being with us today, and let's go racing. Bye-bye.
eParTrade is a digital platform that we've created basically to make life easier in the business community of auto racing.
eParTrade, there is no e-commerce. It's literally a connection just like at a trade show. So now, any time of the year, a buyer could reach out to a supplier.
When you see a product that you're interested in, all you need to do is click on request more information, and then from there, it is forwarded directly to the buyer or to the supplier.
eParTrade really eliminates having to travel, closing down your shop. Now you have a place to showcase globally your racing product and technology.
Land speed record holder George Poteet's Speed Demon rocketed 481 miles per hour at the Bonneville Salt Flats. You don't go that fast without ARP fasteners.
There is no way that we could go the speed that we've gone, the number of times we've gone, with a lesser quality bolt than ARP supplies to us. And we absolutely wouldn't be where we were today if it weren't for ARP.
When failure is not an option, it's ARP-bolts.com.
We're Performance Plus Global Logistics. Our team of dedicated performance industry and logistics experts get valuable cars and components to the track on time in top condition. We provide expedited logistics solutions for the performance industry using direct routes instead of deferred options, and communicate all necessary information to the appropriate resources to meet regulations and ensure a smooth transit and secure delivery, both domestically and internationally. And we exceed customer expectations by providing best-in-class service with an efficient and cost-effective system in place. Contact us today to book your next shipment.
You work as hard as your truck, and you have no time for downtime. That's why more truck owners trust Blue Def, America's #1 diesel exhaust fluid brand. Each batch is guaranteed pure, so you can avoid costly repairs caused by inferior DEF. Demand America's best for your truck. Blue DEF and Blue DEF Platinum. Put trust in your truck.
I'm Michael Cruz, owner and operator of Got Mechanic LLC. Whether we're out in the field or whether we're in the bay, me and my guys are able to actually go into parts procurement and be able to pull up these prices for our parts and use the parts matrix to actually get a profit off of these parts on the fly. Parts procurement makes it even better just with being able to get in contact with my local retailers.